On the edge of space, before time began, there was only the Hubverse. Sprocketeers avenged clarity, they dismantled obscurity, they danced when the flywheel spun. Here, we bring you the stories and the journeys to becoming the HubSpot SuperAdmin. In this episode, 2032 Jen rests and recharges, photography comes up, and we learn what it's like to be employee 0.5. Welcome to the Becoming a HubSpot SuperAdmin podcast, powered by Sprocketeer, where we're championing the HubSpot SuperAdmin. With us today is Jen Bergren. She's a HubSpot SuperFan and genuinely a really nice person. Hey, Jen.
Hi.
All right, so for everyone listening, we start off at the top with a fun question that I think at some point, Jen, we're going to have to start tracking and see what everyone has come back with.
Yes, but like a poll.
Yeah, we'll poll out.
Winning?
What is your favorite HubSpot tool and why is it your favorite?
My favorite HubSpot tool is actually the knowledge base, which may have 0 votes so far. So here's vote number 1.
Vote 1. Add it to the list.
For the knowledge base, because I love documentation, especially internal documentation to help everybody in the whole company do what they need to do, take time off, so many benefits. I've been on a real kick for creating content about documentation. So, of course, that is my answer.
I think the knowledge base is amazing. And when the idea of pairing pop-ups that might help your anyone using the portal with the knowledge base articles you might have, I guess I know they're external. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of playbooks. Okay. External knowledge bases for the company, for people to use. Heard. So that gets our playbooks internally your favorite tool?
We actually didn't use playbooks that much at Remotish because there's many reasons. I just went through this in the beta for the HubSpot navigation. I had like a whole paragraph, but of course I didn't have it with me. But playbooks are mostly for salespeople to help them answer the same questions and collect information on a record inside of HubSpot. But the knowledge base, you can just have like a URL and people don't need to be in HubSpot in order to access that information. So it's more accessible for everyone to both create and view.
Love it. Documentation, knowledge base. Okay. Adding it to the list, as you said. It's got its spot now. All right. So digging in then more to you, Jen, we want to hear about you and your story. So if you would please tell us the now statements. Give us a couple anecdotes about what it is you're doing and where you're at now. Sure.
So I recently left my full-time job as Senior Operations Manager at Remotish, a HubSpot web ops and rev ops agency. In order to pursue one of my life goals of finishing a book, I've been working on a RevOps book since I started that in 2020. I did all the research and then I got busy with my job and I really want to finish. And I also want to continue to shift my career more into learning and development, more education. So besides that book, there are a couple other projects I'm working on. It's including, there's too many projects, but let's see if I can name them.
Just a couple.
First up, I'm doing a live cohort class about documentation. That's going to be beta tested in December. It's going to be a 2-week class. I plan to run it monthly, but the first time it'll run is December. So that's exciting. And that is a live class. I'm also helping a friend with build a financial class, and that's going to be an on-demand class. So I'll get experience with on-demand classes as well, creating those. Another super exciting thing I can only slightly mention is helping HubSpot Academy create a bootcamp. That's as much as I can say about that. That's also a live cohort class. I recently did assist on one of their boot camps, their sales skills boot camp, which has been running for a while, which was super interesting to see how that is run. Mm-hmm. And I already too many things in addition to trying to keep up with my community activity and some smaller bits of content.
Right.
at that the intersection of like operations and HubSpot and learning and development, such as the summaries I'm doing for Sprocketeer about the HubSpot admin events. Yay! Too many things.
Too many things on the plate, all the plates spinning, all of them up in the air. It's great to hear, and I like to hear what you did, Jen, of taking a focused look. It's nice to hear someone say, I'm doing lots of things. I know you're still doing lots of things, but you're honing them. Like you're taking those so that it can come to a point and you can focus it in a direction. And that's really nice to hear. It seems like
the idea. I hope we'll see.
Yeah. It's all gonna work. Those of you listening, Jen is a lot of fun to talk to because she's doing what she's doing and she's really honest about it, and and just enjoys what she's doing. And I don't know why, but it always turns into, but it could all come crashing down. Like, we don't know the future. It's just this honesty. Yeah. So that's why I guess why I'm giggling. It's enjoyable to talk with someone who's so honest. Like, I'm doing my best. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's now. Take us back, Jen. Talk to us about your starting point in your career where HubSpot entered the scene for you. What were you doing? And then what was that transition where HubSpot started to become a part of your life?
Sure. So my HubSpot story.
Yeah. Yes.
I was using HubSpot at a previous agency before Remotish that I was interning at to help me with one of my career changes, which we will talk about in a minute. But they used HubSpot for like one client for like the blog and the social media, so like minimum use, but that gave me an entry point into HubSpot. I think I may have also used it for one of those grad school classes I was taking at the time. And that got me into learning about HubSpot as a company and the culture, and it's super interesting, and definitely a HubSpot Academy, taking the HubSpot Academy classes. Yeah. And all of that led me to the local events that were being hosted in San Diego, the local Hug events, where my, at some point, boss, Nicole, was running. That's how I met her. And when I was looking for a new role, Nicole was starting her own agency, and I saw her post on LinkedIn and responded. And so that is how I ended up working for a purely HubSpot agency and being like, HubSpot all the time. I had like 5 roles there because I started as employee number 1, basically. We have a joke about like 0.5, 1.5. She just wrote a post about that. But about employee number 1, helping her build the company. I was in client-facing roles first. So helping clients with HubSpot, training them on HubSpot, and then managing that client services team. So helping them help clients with HubSpot and learn about HubSpot and stay on top of all the changes. And later on moved to being ops manager. So our internal HubSpot, and also continuing the education of our team, like keeping everybody up to date on betas and new announcements and everything to help them with their client work. I'd say my one last point maybe about HubSpot is getting involved in the HubSpot community has been super helpful. Not just like visibility for me or work, but learning from others and supporting others, making friends, learning and helping at the same time. As an introvert, that online community is super helpful.
Heard that. So, so your first kind of foray is blog posts. Did you say? What was the other thing?
Yeah, I think blog and social is what
blog and social
that agency was using for HubSpot.
And so, were you writing those? That was your role?
Yes. Yeah, I was writing those and putting them into HubSpot. Understood.
And that was, did they have they had a website that was built and that blog was through there?
I'm trying to remember. Unsure.
Error 404.
Unsure if the blog was separate or if the whole website was on HubSpot.
Gotcha. And so I'm seeing a thread of documentation, and it's making way more sense. Those of you
the
listening,
writing does make its way through all of the jobs, yes.
just writing and being able to take broad concepts and either summarize them or reframe them into ways that are understandable. You seem to have a knack and an ability to just do it. And all of us who have our skill set, when we're doing it, it always seems so, well, yeah, because that's what I do. And then you just realize everyone doesn't. And that's why you're doing it, because you can do it. Interesting. So the blog post role, then your employee 0.51 and your client facing. And so the documentation maybe of what it is you're working on and the strategy with those clients, the communication aspect. And then that shifts into ops where you're helping run internally. And there's so many updates, especially with HubSpot, right? So you're having to communicate so often about all of the things that are happening.
Yeah, new things they could use for clients or teach.
Right. All right. So those were your milestones then too, yes? Or do you have some additional milestones that you'd like to share?
I have different career journey ones, but those are the specific HubSpot ones, I think.
Received. All right, yeah. So now let's go back through there. Love to hear along the way some of the milestones that you reached. Now that we know kind of where you came from HubSpot land.
HubSpot land.
From the Hubverse, as we call it.
So my career journey in general is super long and winding for sure. I have a very giant article on LinkedIn, but I do have like a shorter version I can try to go through here. We'll see how it goes. But basically, I'm one of those people who wish they knew what operations was maybe earlier in my career. Because like a lot of people, I fell into it. My first career was actually print graphic design, including daily newspaper, weekly magazine. It was really high volume, fast-paced work with non-movable deadlines with printers and mailing subscriptions, not SaaS, but actual mailing subscriptions.
In the mail.
Yeah, a lot of constraints requiring project management, creating templates, creating streamlined approval processes, problem solving quickly. Looking back on it, it's a lot of ops for someone who originally had an art degree.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I really did thrive in those areas of the job, like getting things done on time, on budget. That was an interesting challenge for me always. So that was career number one. Career two was while I was at these design jobs, I was also directing photo shoots. So that got me really interested in photography. So long story short, second career was starting a photography art business. That involved, everything, starting a business and running a business, creating all the processes, learning all the things, learning how to run a business. And it all had to be efficient because it was just me.
It was just you.
One person. And my favorite part of that job was actually business and marketing. That was a whole new topic for me coming from that arts background. So a few years later, sadly, that business wasn't profitable, but I thought I'd go back to school to get an MBA. I always wanted a master's. That seemed to make sort of financial sense. And also, I love learning, especially about businesses that are larger than one person. Kind of need some help there. Get some knowledge, fill in some gaps. So I did that. I thought that would transition my third career as marketing. It sort of was very briefly. I did a little bit of consulting and that internship. But after grad school, that's when I started working at the agency, which is now called Remotish. Back then it was called Chief MarTech Officer. It was, again, the second month in existence. So like helping build the business, which I'm super grateful that Nicole let me do because that wasn't like officially my job. But that was super interesting. We ended up building like the ops foundation of the business together and then split off operations into its own role. So I had all the ops for an ops agency at the time. We were shifting into being more of an ops agency. So obviously by that point, I had learned a lot about what operations is and does.
Mm-hmm.
I like finding those common patterns and themes, and like the common thread throughout that journey is all those ops mindset things, like
Yeah.
problem solving, efficiency, repeatable processes, documentation, being curious, wanting to know how things work and tie together. And I didn't really know those things could be its own job. I just thought like, oh, those are good skills for any job.
Right.
Which,
You have to have this to
it's
do
true,
jobs.
but it
Right.
also can be its own job. So I think my last point in this really long monologue is
You're doing great. It's interesting to hear the progression.
yeah, my educational content creation. I don't have a name for what I'm doing right now, but that's kind of the bucket it's in. A goal is to help people understand ops and elevate ops as a field, as a role, as a job, and maybe people will become aware of it sooner and start working in it earlier in their career and pursue it more intentionally.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of one of the goals there, is to spread the word about operations.
Pursuing it more intentionally. I remember my ops class. The day one, they split the class, and then we had to be on a desert island and list all the things we wanted to bring. And it was about, you're going to die if you don't have water. And no one had water at the top of their list. We had tents, we had food, you know. I love the progression in sharing about bringing it all together and realizing that this is actually a thing.
Yeah.
As we're joking about it, there are so many pieces that need to align and be efficient, and people need to be able to talk. And operations streamlines that and enables it.
It's true.
Looking forward to hearing more about that. I know that's not what we're doing here, but it's very interesting to hear that's the direction you're going. All right. So now that you've done where you're at, where you started, your milestones, can you talk us through some people? Who are some of the people along the way that you're either grateful for or had an impact on you as you came along?
Sure. If I haven't said it enough in the podcast already, I'm grateful for Nicole Panetta,
Mm-hmm.
the CEO and founder of Remotish, for like taking a chance on me to start working for her as basically employee number one, even with, as we just discussed, my super weird background.
Nicole's great. Always been super
Nicole
nice.
is amazing.
Yes.
I did go through a very hard, long, depressing search for my like after MBA graduation job, because like my LinkedIn and my resume looks super strange. I probably wasn't making it through any of those AI resume scanners, because they're like, nope, nope, none of those marketing job titles on here. But thankfully, I found work through my network. That was actually the first time I had ever found work through my network throughout that whole journey. Mm-hmm. It's the only time that had happened, even though I read, the research says that's the most common way to find jobs.
Right.
So I had not experienced it yet. So that was pretty cool. I started as a contractor. They are doing like ebook design and copywriting and some basic HubSpot work. And then she also convinced me to be an employee for the first time in like 8 years. At that point, that's a testament to her.
Right, right.
So grateful she helped me she let me help build the business, even though, again, we said that's not my official job. But I was super interested in all of that from my past experience, education. And there are so many other people I'm grateful for.
Were there others?
So many. It's hard to name more names, but I'll just say a quick thank you to everyone in not just mine, but the HubSpot community, all my friends, for their support, especially right now, helping me be brave. That includes you, Grant. Thank you.
Heard. Thanks for being here. This is great, and we'd love to hear your story. One of the things, Jen, that made this podcast exist is the HubSpot community was so welcoming and so deep that when I was helping find solutions, we would talk through the workflow or whatever it was. But we would spend time together with these random strangers talking through our personal stories. How did you get here? What roles did you do before? Like, how did you get to do this stuff? And it's just part of, I guess, how we work. And yeah, it helps me as an introvert, get out of my shell and hear and talk to other people, which I love doing, but I know I need to recharge sometimes too. All right. So we've gone through the milestones, we've gone through the people. This is an interesting question. It's the one we get comments on most on the podcast, which is the future Jen. So it's 2022 now, so we'll say 2032. 2032 Jen is in front of you right now. Magically. What is she saying to you? What is she doing that she's telling you and validating? What is she reminding you of? Kind of take that any direction of 2032 Jen's kind of message to 2022 Jen.
Sure. So I had to think about this in advance, like many things when I have to talk about anything. I did think of 3 things that 2032 Jen would say.
The honor roll was perfect.
You're gonna make me do math. I wasn't expecting that. Number 1 is keep going. I think actually Christina K may have said this in her interview, and I'm going to steal it because it's good. It's good advice. Keep going. Once I finish at least one of these giant projects I'm working on now, it should build some momentum and help it get easier not only to finish the other ones, but like repeat, like do another book, do another course. It will be easier the second time around. Mm-hmm. And also to like build on pieces of content like in between, like a whole maybe content ecosystem. I almost knocked over my water. Too many hand motions. But keep going, because 10 years from now, me would say this is really a scary, like ambiguous time right now, especially for someone who loves planning. We usually have everything all planned out. Mm-hmm. But I should remember also that this either whatever it's called, transition between jobs or working for myself or whatever I'm doing right now, mm-hmm. due to all the investing I've done in my network the past couple of years, all these many years of supporting different communities, I'm in a much better place to be successful faster compared to previous transitions or working for myself. So that's number 1. Number 1 thing. There's a lot of things in one.
1A, 1B, 1C.
The number 2 thing 2032 Jen would say is, even though I'm very logical, always planning like worst case scenario, I would say to myself, the worst thing that could happen is probably not likely to actually happen, especially if you get some of this work done, like publishing it. Then I'll make some amount of money and progress. But if I stay paralyzed by fear or perfectionism, or that's also fear, then the worst things are more likely to happen. Maybe they won't happen, but it's more likely. So just get things launched, get things published, send out beta versions, improve them later. The projects are not going to help people learn or help people in general if I don't make them available, if I don't get them out of my head. Similar to documentation, it's not going to help anybody if it's only in my head. People can't learn from it if they can't see it.
Understood.
All right, the third thing in my rambling that 2032 me would say to myself is everything probably doesn't have to be so hard all the time. I make things really hard on myself, but I need to remember to take care of myself, to rest and recover. Remember, like, I'm not in my 20s anymore, so I can't be like expecting to work 3 different full-time jobs at the same time. Not realistic. I don't have that energy. Take care of future me by resting and recovering, building that into my new routines. Think of it like an investment for my future self. I'm not going to be able to accomplish all those things if I'm burnout, if I'm having health issues caused by burnout. Rest is important. That's the third big thing I'm trying to remember as I'm doing too many projects at the same time. But
thanks for those. You drew me in. Those hit home, I think, for a lot of us, especially with 2020. It pulled out a lot of personal issues that people had. and you're forced to deal with them or ignore them, which could either exacerbate or clarify. And that's definitely tough to then move forward with as you just continue to exist in that inside or whatever the case was for people. And I guess what you said hit really home as just like a personal reminder that you are still a person when you're done with whatever work you're doing. And so making that a priority will help anything that you're working on, whether it's too many things or one thing.
Definitely.
It sounds to me like 2032 Jen's going to really love what 2022 Jen's doing.
I hope so.
I'm going to stop saying numbers because I feel like
I'm losing track.
Well, all right, Jen, we've reached the end. If those of you listening, if they want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
You can find me on LinkedIn.
All right, go over to LinkedIn and search for Jen and mention that you listened to her story on the Becoming HubSpot Super Admin podcast. Say that you love that she lives in Paris and that you noticed she's walking in from Paris. I don't know if those of you listening, Jen likes this joke, but I make it every time I've talked to her.
See if I can figure out my camera moving.
There it is.
Okay.
Here's the Eiffel Tower. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Jen.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here and having thoughtful responses. All of you out there listening, thank you for listening. Thanks for being here. And until next time, spinny, spinny.